Lisa Wilson Grant is a lifelong Norwalk resident and avid history buff. She is Commissioner of the Norwalk Historical Commission and a board member of the Rowayton Historical Society. She also serves as the Regent of Darien's Good Wife's River chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution and is a docent for the Norwalk Art Commission WPA murals at Norwalk City Hall. Additionally, she is the Membership and General Administration Coordinator at Lockwood Matthews Mansion Museum. Over the years, Lisa has collected many photographs and artifacts of the area. In 2011, while chairman of the Roden Point History Committee, Lisa co-authored a book entitled Roden Point, featuring these artifacts. She recently expanded on that endeavor to write a new book that deals more comprehensively with Norwalk. That book, which was released for sale on June 23rd of this year, is the subject of her talk today. Please join me in welcoming Lisa Wilson Grant.
Hello. Well, that was very nice. It covered a lot of what I was going to say. But yeah, first I'm in the Roden Point History Committee, and I got involved with that originally because I grew up in Rowayton, and I was always fascinated with the old amusement park and the remnants of what was the roller coaster loading and unloading platform. And so when I would find photographs of what it used to look like in its day, I was always trying to match up, the retaining wall that was a curve, where that is in relation to the picture, and that was sort of the start of it for the Roden Point aspect. And then when I got involved with the history committee over there, we were looking to do a book and found that this Arcadia Publishing series was a good fit because they have a postcard history series that pretty much correlated with the amusement park era. So, as a committee, the four of us put together the Roden Point book. Now, when the Roden Point book was all done, we were at Barnes & Noble, and I happened to notice the Images of America series, which is the book Norwalk is. I happened to notice there's a book on Danbury, Stamford, and Westport, and there wasn't a Norwalk book. And I thought, hey, well, it was kind of fun to gather things and scan them and put it together. I asked the Norwalk Historical Society, why isn't there a book on Norwalk in this series? Because there seems to be one on every other town in the nation. And they said, oh, we have enough books on Norwalk. They're stuck with a whole bunch of coffee table books from the 70s, which are very interesting, and I tried to be complimentary to that and use photos that weren't in that book. And as it turns out, some of them are, but I started out doing the contract with Arcadia for this book, and a week later they closed the Norwalk Museum, and I thought, oh my gosh, I was going to go there to get images. I didn't really have much to start with, but it was just as well because not having the museum to go to, it got me to reach out to other sources. And in doing so, there's a group called I Grew Up in Norwalk, and there's 9,900 people in this group. And it was a wonderful resource. It's on Facebook. I would scan a picture of something I might be wondering about, or I might know a little bit about it, but I just figured I'd throw it out there and see what else, to learn about it. So I'd have mystery photo number 5, and that might be the county children's home. And then you get 3 generations of input. You get people, oh, my grandfather worked there, and then you hear whatever story it is about that, or, Stu Leonard's promised he'd build a orphanage and he never did. And I didn't put that in the book, but it's things like that some things like that I did put in the book. But it was kind of these little tidbits of information that you'd never find going into some, archives, So what I have here is, there were a lot of photographs that I wanted to include that when you're doing one of these books, you have a certain set page count. You have 70 words or less per caption. There's a lot of rules. And I had to balance that with a little something about the Hungarians, I had to have a spreadsheet of all the different topics to cover so as to not disinclude any one particular group. I'm sure I did, but I tried not to. I tried to be pretty comprehensive in that. So here, these are photos, there was a picture of Norwalk Airport that I really wanted to put in there, that at the 11th hour, Arcadia rejected 20 images, and they said, oh, we'll just take them out. No, I had to have a Norwalk Airport, so I did go down to that history room at the 11th hour, and a few of them I was able to find a substitute photograph. So these are a lot of the ones that I didn't use or supplementary to what is in the book. So it's sort of a little bit about the process. I mean, I ended up with, since Norwalk, unlike Darien, where there seems to be sort of one town and one way of, people, generally can agree on things, Norwalk seems to always have been different sections of Norwalk. There's Silver Mine, there's Rowayton, I grew up in, East Norwalk, South Norwalk. Even early on, there was two cities. It was the city of South Norwalk and the town of Norwalk. They finally consolidated in 1912. So it's always been sort of segmented that way, and that's why I did the chapters. Each chapter is a different section of Norwalk. And I have it sort of as if I was driving around Norwalk, the organization of where I put things. Okay, so this is, as I said, this is Roten Point Park, now Bailey Beach. This building is still there. It actually was renovated after Hurricane Sandy. It's the pavilion, they call it. There's a snack bar and bathrooms. And my dad actually runs Bailey Beach in the summers. He goes to Jupiter, Florida the rest of the year, and then he comes back and he runs this place. So there's a lot of angles on why this place is special to me.
What year is that picture?
This is probably late 30s, because the first roller coaster was an out and back style. Roten Point Park was Roten Point, if you know the beach club today, Bailey Beach, the 6th taxing district, Town Beach, and Weburn. So those three properties together were was Roten Point in the beginning. The 1890s is pretty much when it started to really be an amusement park. The first roller coaster was an out and back style, 1914. So it was along all the way the extension of the beach and back. 1924, they enhanced that. They made it a little bit steeper, a little bit, more interesting. But by 1934, Ralph Case purchased what's Weburn and developed the Rowayton Beach Association with landfill and did all that development in 1934. So the beach got sort of cut in half. But that was fine for the roller coaster people, because this figure 8 was more thrilling, and the out and back style was boring. It was just, out and back. As people went around, the 1930s, they got into this particular style. So this would be after 34. Roten Point was an amusement park where steamboats would come from New York City. Excursions, people would make a full day of it, church groups. It would take 3 hours to come from New York to Roten Point. They'd have bands on the steamboat, and then they'd finish, come off the boat and enjoy their day at Roten Point. It was also, originally it was developed as an amusement park because it's the end of a trolley spur, and trolley companies like to have an amusement park as a destination at the end to, of course, increase the ridership. So having an amusement park was a great draw in that regard. The park continued on until 1938. The hurricane of 38 did quite a number on destroying a lot of aspects of it, but they did rebuild, and it went along till 1941. And the steamboats were then needed for service in World War II, and they, you know, and the manpower, so they closed the park at that point, 1941. All right, well, this is sort of a lot of the early part of Norwalk history. I don't have photos for, so as it's a picture book, I had to sort of touch on the fact that it was settled in two parts. There's one part was Roger Ludlow to the east and Daniel Partridge to the west. Now, I have an ancestor, Andrew Ward, who I never knew. All I knew growing up was he was one of the first governors of Connecticut, and nobody really knew how it went. And when I started to get involved with genealogy and local history at the same time, I thought, Andrew Ward, there's a high school, Andrew Ward, in Fairfield, and on that monument that's in the cemetery, the Descendants of Andrew Ward Society erected this to Andrew Ward, who was sent from Governor Winthrop to govern the people of Connecticut, and was an early founder of Wethersfield and Stamford. Oh, I never knew that, and I wish I could tell my mom, you know, we grew up in Rowayton, about that, but she's no longer here. So Andrew Ward did the treaty with Peamican. He's the Sagamore chief of the Rowaytons that established Stamford's border with Norwalk at 5 Mile River. For new, you know, then this is kind of interesting when your personal genealogy actually intersects with local history. So basically, the area that's Darien used to be Stamford. And so then that's how I got involved originally with the Goodwife's River chapter, DAR, because the land is Darien, it used to be Stamford. But the Stamford men and the Norwalk men didn't get along for many reasons. There was, you know, for many years, they had disputes over who could use the river and what animals could graze there or not, and that went on for a long time. All right, so the earliest part of Norwalk, while it was purchased in 1640, it never really got settled until 1651. And in those times, it was East Norwalk is where the original people first settled with home lots. And here's one of the WPA murals. I got involved with the WPA mural tours this last summer, so I've included that. This is Mahakamo, Chief Mahakamo with Roger Ludlow, and Jew's harp and the objects that were traded for that part of Norwalk. And these are just the different chapters that I have in the book. Norwalk, East Norwalk, and South Norwalk, and the islands and the shoreline, and then Wilson Point, which used to be a freight center for a time, Rowayton, Brookside in West Norwalk, Winnepaug, and then Silvermine. Okay, so these, all right, so this is one of the photos. I'm actually working right now at Lockwood Matthews Mansion. But this was too grainy for the publisher's liking, and it was rejected. But this shows the masons building Lockwood Matthews Mansion. And the stone masons came over from Europe. All that woodwork, all those details were done by hand. It's just, if you've never been to that place, it's a fabulous place, and I'm happy to be working there now, because it's really neat. Every time I look, I find something else I hadn't seen before. This is the armory. Now, in front of it, there's this monument that has a horse trough with it, and that's was a McKim, Mead and White monument. It was a DAR monument. And when I got involved with the DAR, part of my impetus to do this book was I had gone around Norwalk to look at all the DAR monuments, and I was distressed to discover that this one, just this part, was in front of Nathan Hale School. This horse trough was up in Wilton, and it had sat there for 80 years, and nobody could get it back from Wilton. It was sort of held hostage there. this armory was taken down when they wanted to build Route 7 connector. This monument was disassembled in the 20s. They moved this part to Mill Hill, and that's when this horse trough seems to have disappeared. So I was always like, well, yeah, and there's also on the back, there's a bronze plaque that the children of Norwalk gave to Norwalk, and it says, him whose last words were, I have but one life to lose for my country. Okay. So this is the back, and there's a bronze fish. You know, I went to New York Historical Society to you know, see the drawings from McKim, and White, and confirm that it was, you know, their design. So I had gotten wind that the Ambler Farm, which is where this trough was sitting, was looking to get rid of the trough. So I ended up, I'm trying to keep this story a little bit short because it is a long story, but they wanted to switch